2077, there have been many cyberpunk icons that pave the way for this gaming icon. But first, what is cyberpunk? Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction in a dystopian, futuristic setting that tends to focus on a combination of low life and high tech, featuring advanced technological and scientific achievements, such as artificial intelligence and cybernetics, juxtaposed with a degree of breakdown or radical change in the social order. Most cyberpunk is rooted in new wave science fiction. The new wave science fiction movement of the 1960s and 70s, when writers like Philip K. Dick and Roger Zelazny and John Brunner and J.G. Ballard and Philip Jose Farmer and Harlan Ellison examined the impact of drug culture, technology, and the sexual revolution while avoiding the utopian tendencies of earlier science fiction. Not everything in the future is supposed to look perfect, so they've tried to create a fantasy and stories around a future that didn't necessarily look perfect. Tonight, we're going to focus on these graphic reflections of capitalism and corporatization by categorically ranking these icons based on their success. I'm sure no one will find that ironic. But number 10 on our countdown is Mass Effect. And of course, we've got to pass that off to Kev to tell him why Mass Effect is a cyberpunk icon.
Yeah, so I was torn because I really wanted this to get on the list, and I found a way to make it. So initially, if you play the first game, it doesn't seem when you initially start, it doesn't seem like it's too cyberpunky, right? Like it's basically this galactic federation of aliens with humanity being sort of infant stage of this, i.e., I guess this is kind of just art reflecting reality. Who knows? But eventually, as you play the game, you realize things are a little bit more dystopian than you had realized. There are various sort of hidden plot lines and plot twists along the way, i.e. Saren being the sort of conduit for a super intelligent artificial mega race of destructive ship species robot squid things that have to wipe out organic life every 50,000 years. To the second one being a much darker and deeper tale of as Shepard going essentially to the bad guy side or anti-hero side, in which you are working with Cerberus for, again, a common goal in order to stop the Reapers. It's a little bit more cyberpunky in this aspect, in a sense that, yes, of course, Mass Effect is teeming with various technological advancements, cybernetic upgrades, and everything. And then along the way, you are sort of helping to make the galaxy a more harmonious and balanced place by bringing species together, or not. Again, your choice, depends how you play. I usually go the Paragon route, but ultimately, the genre still stands. I think it holds up as a pretty good cyberpunk genre. Again, you have all the technological advancements with the Omni tool, the biotic upgrades, and then again, with the underlying doom and threat of a dystopian and apocalyptic sort of cataclysm within the plot itself. And who knows, looking at the trailer, looks like this might be even more cyberpunk, being that it's set after the third one, which means the Reapers have just basically all but devastated everything. So I think it's going more in that direction. Dodd, Bron, what do you guys think? Have you guys ever had a chance to sit down and spend 1 million hours on Mass Effect like I have?
So I played a little Mass Effect before, but I most of my Mass Effect experience comes from watching my roommate in college play Mass Effect, because he went through all 3 of them and certainly invested more of into his social life in Mass Effect than he did his social life in outside of college. But it was really a very interesting story, and there were definitely characters that I could recognize as cyberpunk for sure, and especially with more of the storyline context and everything like that. I think it does hit a lot of those, checks a lot of those boxes for sure. Yeah. Ron, what about you? What do you think?
I haven't gotten a chance to play, but excited to maybe try out the newer game. Or what console is this one for?
It's on all of them now. It used to be just Xbox, but it's on everything.
I played it.
Yeah.
You need to check out the remastered version that they're going to put with all 3 of them together, right? Isn't that coming out soon? Yeah.
Hell yeah, it is. I'd wait to play that, Bron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely need to check that one out. But Braun, you got number 9 on our list, which is also an unconventional pick for a cyberpunk list, but it does have a ton of cyberpunk influences. Number 9 on our list is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, Mad Max Fury Road. So in this, I'll give you a brief little synopsis. The world has become a desert wasteland and civilization has collapsed as a result of wars and dwindling resources. Max, played by Tom Hardy, is a survivor haunted by visions of the past. He's captured by the war boys, the army of the tyrannical, immortal Joe, and taken to Joe's citadel. There, Max is imprisoned and used as a blood bag. Meanwhile, Furiosa, one of Joe's lieutenants, is sent in her armored war rig to collect gasoline and ammunition. When she diverts course, Joe realizes that his 5 wives are missing and are fleeing with her. Joe leads his army in pursuit of Furiosa. Throughout this journey, Furiosa forms an unlikely alliance with Max after he escapes his imprisonment. What makes Max a cyberpunk icon, you might ask? Well, his ability to survive and adapt to this post-apocalyptic wasteland goes unmatched. He is a man of few words, but what he lacks in verbal communication, he makes up for in brute force and combat skills. In this world, the juxtaposition of desolation combined with technologies, particularly when it comes to vehicles, puts it on the map within the cyberpunk zeitgeist. In Cyberpunk 2077, the game even includes a Mad Max Easter egg as a nod to this iconic film. To coincide with the 5th anniversary of Fury Road, CD Projekt Red came out with an in-game vehicle, the Reaver, a custom-built Wraith Gang vehicle based on the Quadra Type 66 car. Dodd, how would you build your car if you were in the wasteland?
Well, I'd probably build it a lot like I did in the Mad Max video game, because that's one of the games that I did sink a lot of hours into.
Me too.
That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I'd probably go with a muscle car outrigged with a bunch of different, like those big cattle guard things with spikes on the front, and those ridiculous mud tires. I mean, if we're talking about Mad Max universe, you need the biggest, the baddest, and the meanest looking. So I'd try to go with a combination of that. That's what I'd think. What about you, Kev?
Yeah, I agree. I'm all here for Mad Max cars. I definitely want one. But I did not know that CD Projekt Red did. I'm sorry, they didn't do. Okay, I thought they made the Mad Max game. I was gonna say that's.
Oh no, they just had a reference to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, number 8 on our countdown, moving right along, is Ex Machina. Outside of being the name of the cyberpunk version of D&D, Ex Machina is the perfect cyberpunk. The name comes from the term, well, it's not the perfect cyberpunk, but the name comes from the term Deus Ex Machina, which, for those of you who don't know, means an unexpected power or event saving from a seemingly hopeless situation. So, in other words, the Eagles in Mordor, pretty much. The phrase has been used for a lot of cyberpunk titles, and the phrase itself certainly has a very cyberpunk vibe. In the film, Caleb Smith, a programmer and for a huge internet company, wins a contest that enables him to spend a week at the private estate of Nathan Bateman, played by Oscar Isaac, and his firm's brilliant CEO. When he arrives, Caleb learns that he has been chosen to be the human component of a Turing test to determine the capabilities and consciousness of Ava, played by Alicia Vikander. A beautiful robot. However, it soon becomes evident that Ava is far more self-aware and deceptive than either man imagined. Well, Ex Machina has a lot of cyberpunk elements. It's still lacking a little bit of the whole breakdown or radical change in social order department. Obviously, the AI kind of getting a life of its own and doing that is certainly there, but all the characters do seem pretty well throughout the movie, and there's not really that economic juxtaposition. But outside of that, it's still a major cyberpunk icon for its visuals, the way it lays things out, and the mixture of technology in a kind of uncertain reality. Braun, how important do you think it is to have that juxtaposition in a cyberpunk story?
I think it's really important because putting those sort of things side by side makes them stand out. And I feel like it also, like, that punk aspect of it, that grittiness is sort of seen in those moments when you're taking two things that don't necessarily go together and then highlighting them.
Yeah, for sure. Kev, you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to have this sort of. I think the whole premise of cyberpunk, in a nutshell, if I could say, is like either lo-fi tech or super high tech with like grunge elements, like
Yeah.
deep, God. I don't want to say any spoilers, but we'll get to that later. But something on that aspect. It has to be one of the other. Like you said, it has to be a good balance or harmony or juxtaposition between like technology and just dystopian, some elements of that. I don't know.
For sure. And especially on the technology element, number 7 on your countdown gets a little bit closer to that mark, which is Tron Legacy. Tell us what Tron Legacy makes the countdown, Bronwyn.
All righty, let's get into Tron Legacy. And this 2010 sequel to the original 1982 Tron, the son of a virtual world designer goes looking for his father and ends up inside the digital world that his father designed. He meets his father's corrupted creation and a unique ally who was born inside of this digital world. While the storyline and character development is a little lacking, the world building, aesthetics, and atmosphere are what put this movie on the list. The film literally takes place inside of a video game. Can you get any more cyberpunk than that? And it's not just where it takes place, but how they pull you into that world, the mix of electric blue and black, the innovation, sleek design of the weapons, vehicles, and costumes all have this hyper techy vibe to them. The score for the film alone, all produced by Daft Punk, sets the tone for the world. How often have I put on this soundtrack at night, imagining that I'm riding a light cycle? More times than you think. Don, what comes to mind when you think of Tron?
Well, I mean, now it makes me think of riding light cycles, listening to, lo-fi cyber beats. But it has a lot of kind of vaporwave cyberpunk aspects to it, and I think that's why it's a little bit higher on the list because it doesn't necessarily. I think like Ex Machina, it kind of it doesn't necessarily have that juxtaposition economically as much as some of the other ones on our countdown. But outside of that, it really hits every other mark. I mean, the advances in technology and where those lead and how the problems that they create with it, and the kind of the future is not as bright as it seems kind of element, I think is very, very cyberpunk, and definitely kind of goes along with it, for sure. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it does have sort of the elements of it where, yes, the high tech part is kind of sort of outweighed by like some of the other like top sin candidates on the list. But I think you have sort of the underlying threat of this huge corporation sort of getting ready to essentially control the world with this software that's getting ready to come out. And the only way that he can kind of save it is the former founder of the company's son, who had went missing in the video game, basically tries to stop them and using technology along the way. So yeah, it kind of checks the boxes.
Yeah. And I think that maybe what you can see as that juxtaposition could be like this real life person, this like character being thrown into the world. Maybe he's like the low tech, like in this high tech.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, there is a little bit of a juxtaposition there for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Also, the music, one of my favorite soundtracks. Braun was also doing that many nights.
For real. Well, number 6 in our countdown is one of Ridley Scott's best, actually, the Alien franchise. Tell us a little bit why the Alien franchise is a cyberpunk icon, Kev.
Yes, the 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott. Brilliant, man. And written by Dan O'Bannon, based on the story by O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who encounter the eponymous alien, an aggressive and deadly extraterrestrial set loose on the ship. The film stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, amongst many others, and is really an iconic sort of franchise and figure, the xenomorph being a figure with not just within cyberpunk, but within science fiction as well. But the reason it makes our cyberpunk list is because you have sort of, while yes, there isn't like a corporation or some sort of organization that's kind of controlling the world, and you have to use technology in a way. There is one that this film is kind of noted with using sort of lo-fi tech to tell a futuristic story. And I guess that looming threat is sort of the alien. And then also along the way within the franchise itself, you get to like a point where there's Prometheus and there's this corporation trying to sort of profit off of, finding another world, yada, yada, yada. So there's a mix of elements here and there. And then even in Aliens 2, there's sort of this, I think Aliens 2 out of all the movies, if you will, in the franchise is probably the most cyberpunk. It's super 80s. It's super grungy. Again, it's utilizing a lot of the lo-fi tech. It's a military-led organization, but they're over their heads, and there's some sort of rifts that go on because there's conflict of interest. So I think from an aesthetic point, if we don't even get to the plot lines too heavily, I think Alien has to make this list, and I'm glad it's here. What do you think, Bron?
Yeah, I think so. I just can't get that flamethrower out of my head.
Right?
Yeah.
I've been playing around with the flamethrower a little bit this year, and every time I do, I feel like Sigourney Weaver. So
yeah, that and when she's in the giant mech suit fighting the alien queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Like when I first saw this one on the list, I was kind of scratching my head. I was like, well, is that really cyberpunk or is that sci-fi? But like that whole fight scene with Sigourney Weaver, I could definitely classify that as cyberpunk. A lot of the androids that they used in Alien, like you can look at androids like Data, and you could kind of say like he's a lot of this. He kind of looks the same, but like when they actually dissect the android in Alien, and you go inside of him, that to me, I think, has very much that cyberpunk feel. And it was one it was one of those movies, a classic horror movie that came out right in that time where this genre was really, really taking off. And regardless of whether or not it is cyberpunk or not, it definitely shaped cyberpunk stuff going forward. So that's what I said about Alien.
The trailer for Alien, the original trailer, probably one of the greatest movie trailers of all time. If you're a cinephile or curious of some nostalgia, I'd watch that trailer because it still holds up.
I'll check it out. I haven't seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I'll check that out for sure.
Way after it came out. So.
Yeah. Same here.
Well, number 5 in our countdown is getting a bit more cyberpunk now. We're getting another video game on the countdown, Watchdog Legions. Watchdog Legions is a game we haven't talked much about here on the show, but it's certainly been making its rounds on Twitch as one of the best ways to keep someone cyberpunking until the real one dropped this week. Watchdog Legions borrowed a lot of aspects from cyberpunk, with a much more grounded approach to them. It's important to mention that the Watchdog Legions does take place in the present, but they have a lot of access to technology that doesn't exist yet. So it's kind of like a not so distant future kind of feel. And because of that, it just is able to the idea of recruiting a group of folks to help you take down these big techno corporations through hacking different softwares and taking advantage of over corporatization, I think is definitely inherently cyberpunk when it comes to a game. Kev, what do you think? Does the time period make Watch Dogs more or less cyberpunk?
I think it makes it cyberpunk. I think in general, if we look at the definition, like using technologies to sort of undermine a corporation or some sort of nefarious organization, and that's literally the plot of every single Watch Dogs game. Now, I haven't played the new one. I plan on doing it on my new Xbox Series X, hopefully. It's again, I think it for sure it's a cyberpunk game and franchise. What about you, Brian?
So yeah, I haven't played this, but like even looking at that title, Watch Dogs, I'm like,
right, yeah,
yeah. You should definitely check it out on Twitch. I haven't played it either. I've just seen a lot of gameplay on Twitch about it. And
has anyone played the second one?
I dropped off after the first Watch Dogs. I'll be honest with you on that one.
Okay.
Because
Understandable, but the second one's really good. And there's a character in the game. You can look him up now. He's not the main character. He's more of a side character, but he is super cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I bet.
Yeah,
I mean,
Wrench. That's his name. Wrench.
Wrench.
Sorry.
Sounds cyberpunk. Sounds cyberpunk. For sure. For sure. Well, now we're getting into the big icons here, though, because once you get past 5 on the list, you get into the huge staples, the ones that you got that have to make the list here. So number 4 on the list is Total Recall. Tell us why Total Recall makes the list, Braun.
All right, let's go back in time to one of the OGs that makes it on this list, Total Recall, in 1990 sci-fi action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Total Recall, more like total mindfuck. The film tells the story of a construction worker who suddenly finds himself embroiled in espionage on Mars and unable to determine if the experiences are real or the result of memory implants. This world is a mix of high tech that was especially groundbreaking in the 90s, and even looking back today holds that status. Let's just look at some of this technology. It includes the recall machine itself, the thing that is implanting these memories, masks that alter appearances, terraforming devices, nasal-based GPS, hover cars, robocops, and cell phones implanted into the skin. The full-body X-ray machines shown in the film seemed really futuristic at the time, but they are now a part of our normal life. Going into the threat of this film as well, trying to overthrow that corruption and the government, that's puts it on this list. But I think, so that, and combined with this technologies, with the grittiness of this world, like it's very futuristic, but also very gritty. Kevin, if you could choose any of the technologies from this movie to make it into the mainstream per se, what would you choose? What do you want to see?
I don't even know if I want to use it. I just want to see how
it's just you get a COVID test, and that's
how the government tracks you. They stick that nasal GPS.
But no, this is for sure is a classic. I'm glad it's on here. And the remake that came out a few years ago wasn't that bad either. I think they did a pretty good job, especially paying homage to the original. So.
Oh, I'm seeing now that the remake is what is pictured here, and that is.
Yeah.
Me too.
No, that's okay. I mean, they did a pretty good job. It's essentially, and someone's probably gonna, I don't care. It's essentially the same movie. It's just, it looks better, I guess.
It was the same movie, and I almost made the image like both of them side by side because, I mean, it's kind of debatable which one's better. I would probably argue the original is better than this one, but I wanted to make sure to showcase awesome the cyberpunk aesthetics of the new one as well. But the first one was more foundational, and it shows you that it was such a good story on its own that they wanted to reboot it and cash in on that again.
They had to do a total recall.
Total recall. Exactly. Exactly. Well, number 3 on our countdown is another more recent movie, but definitely one that is a cyberpunk icon. Ready Player One is not typically regarded as cyberpunk by hardcore fans, but Ready Player One has a ton of cyberpunk elements, like a general dystopian setting, an oppressive corporatization, virtual reality. What Ready Player One is feeling. The fact is that the future that's depicted in Ready Player One is feeling more and more real by the day. With VR tech on the rise and the global economy on the fall, a future full of third world countries hooked up to Oculus headsets to escape actually seems like a possibility. At least more so than some of the other stuff I've seen in some of the other cyberpunk dystopias, right? We're not gonna start, customizing our genitals with iPod updates anytime soon, right? I think it's more likely we're going to see Oculus Rifts in third world countries before then. TBD. Plus that TBD, yeah. Plus they already have who can't love a movie with so many cameos, right? I mean, the cameos in that movie, let alone, I mean, you have to watch it a couple of times just to catch them all. And then even more recently, Ready Player 2 came out, which kind of explores along a lot of the same topics. So it's definitely a cyberpunk icon. It's definitely one that needs to be recognized on this list. And I know that Braun, I know you're a big VR fan, and I know that you've seen the tech grow rapidly. If VR were available on a mass scale, do you think that the future could look like Ready Player One?
I can totally see that. I could see that happening once it becomes readily available, and also that they improve the technology significantly. But I think that in our future, it's just going to be a part of everyday life and how we interact with the world. I think even like the augmented reality as part of these headsets, like I think that that's going to come into play in just people's everyday lives. You'll that people are going to be in like enhancing their video or visual feedback with things like VR, and that's to come. But you said Ready Player 2 has come out. What?
Yeah, Ready Player. Well, the book.
Yeah,
So
the book.
yeah, the book just came out. There was not.
I
There was not a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I read the book before I saw the movie, so I'm really excited.
There
Yeah, I
you
have
go.
it on my list, guys. Maybe I'll read it on
Yeah.
the
You
stream.
should go check it out. I think it came out like this year or something else, but
It
it's
came out like about a couple weeks ago, I think.
yeah. I know they were doing an interview for it on the Daily Show, so it has to be something very very recent. But it explores a lot of the same topics, and I think that it really kind of will dive even further into this topic, and who knows, maybe even be more cyberpunk. Yeah, you never know. Well, number 2 on our list is one that we could not make this list and not mention. It's the legendary Akira. Tell us why Akira makes the list at number 2, Kev.
Yeah, the 1988 Japanese animated post-apocalyptic cyberpunk action film directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, produced by Raihei Suzuki and Shunzo Kato, and written by Otomo and Izo Hoshimoto, based on Otomo's 1982 manga of the same name. The film had a production budget of 700 million yen, making it the most expensive anime film at the time, until it was surpassed a year later by Kiki's Delivery Service. Set in a dystopian 2019, almost, Akira tells the story of Shitaro Kaneda, leader of a biker gang, who childhood friend Tetsuo Shima acquired incredible telekinetic abilities after a motorcycle accident, eventually threatening an entire military complex amidst chaos and rebellion in the sprawling futuristic metropolis of Neo-Tokyo. While most of the character designs and settings were adapted for the manga, the plot differs considerably and does not include much of the last half of the manga. The soundtrack, which draws heavily from the traditional Indonesian gamelan as well as Japanese no music, was composed by Shoji Yashimiro and performed by Geno Yamashigurumi. This is also thought to be a pivotal sort of piece in entertainment and culture in sort of introducing Japan to cyberpunk. Also, there's vaporwave's aesthetic. List goes on the sort of culture impact that Akira has. But yeah, Braun Daughter, are you surprised at all that this is on the list?
Okay, well, first off, I want to do snaps for Kev for those pronunciations on point.
Thank you.
Like those are real good, and made sure he knew what he was talking about there. But I'm not personally surprised to see this one make the list. It was definitely when we were making this countdown, it was like, oh yeah, like Akira, like that would be one that was on there for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Braun?
I'm in the same boat I'm on the same bike with both of you guys.
Oh, there you go.
The
I
same
want that
cyber
bike. I want that bike. I don't know how I can get it or who needs to make it, but I want it. I've always wanted it ever since I was a boy.
It's a feeling. That's a vibe. I'm right there with you. It's a cool looking bike, and they make it look even cooler in the movie, and it looks even great in the image there. So, yeah. But it's not as good as number 1 in the countdown. Number 1 in our countdown. You couldn't have a cyberpunk countdown if you didn't talk about fucking Blade Runner. So Blade Runner is number 1, is the most cyberpunk icon, the biggest cyberpunk icon. Why? Because it literally shaped the idea of what cyberpunk even is. In fact, to most, Blade Runner is seen as the quintessential example of cyberpunk style and theme. It's no wonder why Cyberpunk 2077's name has a very similar feel to Blade Runner 2049. It really checks out all the cyberpunk boxes. It's in a near future urban dystopia where science and technology have progressed to a near dangerous level. Check. A terrible environmental degradation and societal collapse. Check. The line between human machinery is blurry. Double check. Genetically engineered beings with augmented physical and mental capacity that are indeed more human than human, and then take on self-replicating and then take on a self-reflective capacity and set out to destroy their creators. Check, check, and check. Blade Runner setting is not the only thing that was ahead of its time, because it became the inspiration for cyberpunk icons like it to come. Kev, is there anything more cyberpunk than Blade Runner?
No, 1000% there is not. Yeah, we were doing this and I was like, yeah, Blade Runner has to be sort of the favorite for the number one here. If you listen to any of my music that's played here, there's a lot of influence from Blade Runner, so I'm a little bit impartial. And if you listen to a lot of science fiction soundtracks, even Tron, who was also on the list, Mass Effect as well, they'll tell you the composers, they were inspired by Blade Runner. So it's definitely, I don't think you can have Blade Runner on here without it being without it being number one. I think if it's not number one, it doesn't need to be on the list. I think not only does it check all the boxes, but it also influences all the other 9 that were on this top 10.
For real. For sure. For sure. Braun, anything more cyberpunk than Blade Runner?
Yeah, as they say, if you look up cyberpunk in the dictionary, Blade Runner.
Yeah, that's very true.
For real. For real.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, that about does it. Blade Runner took the top. So that'll about do it for us today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've hope you've enjoyed everything you see today. Remember, if you want more Geek Life, you can always follow any of us on any of our social medias. You can check me out on Twitter and Twitch at Roos_Bane. Where can they find you, Braun?
You could find me at Space Nymph on Twitch and Instagram.
And Kev, where can they find you?
Kevin Todd Jr. and Totally Awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know if we had any new followers join in recently. I didn't see any notifications go off, but Totally Awesome. Savage Patch Kid is still here with us. Ray, Awesome Ray's here. Fattest Sax, Lilith Nelly, Gonzo, Jay Hazard, or Jayzard, Sad Gaming. Oh my gosh, we got the whole crew in here, guys. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Geek Life said, I love the line from the first one. I'm going to blow up this place and be home in time for cornflakes. Is that from Cyberpunk?
From Total Recall.
Total Recall. Oh man, that one aged out. Watch Dogs 2 is fantastic. Savage Patch Kids cheers on it. Is a big Watch Dogs fan. And definitely love some Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac is in everything. He's even in stuff that we're talking about in our top 10, and that's not planned content.
We're still talking about him.
We're still talking about him. We can't stop talking about Oscar Isaac.
As Jake would say, he's so hot right now.
He's so hot right now. Speaking of which, I made emojis. So now, anytime that you have a contest on the countdown, if you're a tier 3 level subscriber, you can buy a siren that you can just start flashing in the chat, which says that the countdown is contested. So definitely subscribe to us. If you subscribe on a level 2, you can get the Jake so hot right now emote, which is always fun. Always a fun one to do. He doesn't realize how much he says it, but we're gonna make sure that we get those emotes in there and remind him every time he does. So we can just get that Magachi. It's got little Magachi with the Supreme headband on it. It's a great emote. I'm proud of it. So.
Nice.
Also, if you didn't catch earlier, you can join our Discord. I think I still have it copy and pasted here, which I'll drop that in the chat. Join the Nerd Herd today. We have a bunch of different content creators in there. We're constantly streaming different stuff. You can catch my stream when it goes live. You can catch my stream when I'm having technical difficulties and I can explain what's going on. A lot of great shows today, guys. So that's really, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. We do this all for you guys. So, I think that covers anything. Am I forgetting anything, guys?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. Well,
Yeah.
big shout out to our moderator, Littlest Nelly, and Gonzo, also our host in chat today. Shout out to our video producer, Kate. We're going to be having a new producer coming on, producer Matt, who's going to be helping us out next week. So stay tuned for more that goes there. Thanks for sticking with us through all of our technical difficulties earlier today. I don't know what was going on with that, but we figured it out. So
Made it work. Very
we made it work.
cyberpunk of us. I don't know if
Made
I
it
used
work.
that right.
Poggers, right?
Yeah.
I think I used that right too, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess
sure.
with all the bugs, it was very cyberpunk of us. Am I right?
Yeah, there we go. We had to hack it, override it.
I was
I feel
bashing.
like-
I was bashing the game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, and yeah, peace.